Okay. All right, here we go. We're starting to get folks streaming in. Welcome everyone. Come on in, come on in. Make yourself comfortable. Come on in.
Nash looks like he's not wearing anything when he's fading back into the background.
Goofy.
Truly goofy.
We've talked to him about that before. There's not much we can do.
Actually, I was thinking I will use that filter where green becomes invisible. That's why I was using this green hat, but then I changed mine. Like no, this is goofy enough, I guess.
You're goofy enough. That's
Well,
good.
for tomorrow, something else. How about that?
Yeah, we can do that. We should do that.
All right, we're starting to see more folks joining. We got about 20 folks in. We'll just wait a little bit, few seconds more until the popcorn stops popping for 4 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
I like the popcorn metaphor.
Yeah, that's how you know when the popcorn is done. There's 4 seconds between a pop, right?
I agree. Totally
All right,
agree.
23. Come on in, folks. Make yourself comfortable. We'll get started in just a second. All right, we got 25. All right, more folks are joining. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We'll just get started in just a second.
Zdrave.
All right, folks are still joining. Here we go. See some familiar names there. Great to see some folks here.
I do too. You know, the surprise is I'm seeing folks from Europe join. That's a
Yes.
surprise.
All eyes are on the DC metro area
Which is awesome.
tonight. Yes, that's very nice to see.
Very nice to see.
All right. More.
As we have more folks joining, I would like to let the folks know here we have a great feature, Q&A feature, chat feature in the Hoover platform. Next to the session, leverage the tools, so the windows, ask questions. I'll be monitoring your questions and chats, and hopefully we'll get to have a Q&A later, like 15 minutes before the session ends. All right?
Yes, thank you so much. Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Okay, okay. I think the popcorn has it's been 4 seconds between a pop, so I think we may be ready to go ahead and start. So thank you everyone for joining our first breakout session of the 20th anniversary Agile conference for the DC metro area. I'm Matthias Nino. I'm your host for today, and I'm joined by Lakshmi and Steve, who are volunteers from the conference. Hello. And we are here today to present to you a session that I'm personally extremely excited for. The minute we started thinking of speakers from this area that we wanted to invite to the conference, this was the first one that came to my mind. And it's been, you know, I met her about 3 years ago at the retrospective, the annual World Retrospective celebration. And every time I don't get to talk to her often, but whenever I do, I just always learn an amazing story that inspires me. And I always look forward to the next time that I can talk with her. So without further ado, I give you Padmini Nidumolu, who is here to present to you her session on Lean and Agile. and the story of Lean and Agile. So Padmini, all yours.
Thank you so much, Matthias, and the entire crew of A20. Lakshmi, Steve, thank you so much. I personally know the tremendous work that went behind this conference, right? It's what, probably 3-4 months ago when the first conversation about this conference was even mentioned. And since then, I think all of you worked tirelessly, right? And we have some amazing speakers, and I can't wait for this conference to, just proceed into tomorrow, day after. And this is just a lovely gathering, and thank you all so much for making this possible and making DC proud, right? It's the DMV area making us proud. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Padmini Nidumolu, and I'm based off of Washington, DC area. And I've been here for 20 years, been in Agile for a while now. And I wore several hats, but I figured Agile coaching and enterprise transformation is my passion. And also raising floor for other women, truly bringing them together to offer to each other and have a psychologically safe space to seek from each other has been my passion. So, and I'm incredibly honored to be part of this group, to be part of this platform, to bring my 2 cents on women in leadership. I think the more and more I interact with women across the globe, I think and I believe that we need more women in the leadership spaces for strategic decisions, to lay the pathway and to ensure that they can give their hand to another woman to kind of pull them up. We absolutely need them. And we do have a gap. We do have that bridge that needs to be laid out. And that will be the topic for today's discussion. So I'll share my screen, and these slides are meant to ensure that we have some sort of an anchor to work on. It's not going to be done by PowerPoint, I promise. All right, let me know when you can see my screen, Matthias.
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome. All right. So, I've done tons of research on this topic, and it's a very profound and just-in-time theme that we all need to embrace. And this is not just for women. And as part of Lean and Agile, when I co-founded Lean and Agile along with Leila Rao, the one thing that we were very clear about was this organization or this effort and this initiative is not just done by women, right? It is a collaborative effort across men and women because men are our allies. So we are looking to collaborate and co-create the future. And I think we all agree that women have historically been underrepresented in leadership spaces and in positions and leadership positions across industries and across the world. I think that's one common denominator that we have all seen very consistently. And why do we need diversity in the leadership space, right? It might be okay to have majority of one gender versus the other. But if you look at the companies with gender diversity, right, a balanced gender diversity in leadership, they clearly outperform their less diverse peers. And the studies show it, the research shows it, and it's no secret. So if you look at diversity and inclusion efforts in an organization, and it's funny that this is more of a check mark in several organizations, right? D&I is a very popular acronym. It's a very popular theme that organizations try to embrace. But I want to call out that they are not synonymous. Diversity and inclusion are not synonymous. Just like you could have a diverse workforce, or you could have an, I would say, inclusive workforce, but if they're not included in your critical decision making, your organization is not an inclusive organization. So I just wanted to call that out upfront so we know as a group here to call out that, yes, you have a diverse group, but are they included in your key decision-making, critical decision-making? Are they on your decision-making tables at all points? And if you look at the organizations, right, just like speed or quality or stability, which are very imperative to operational excellence, and to the revenues, and to kind of accelerate the business agility. Diversity and inclusion should be a must-have, not a nice to have, which is why I called it out here that this is a business imperative. It's not a nice to have checkbox in your hiring strategy or in your tactical implementation, but this is an imperative. In fact, this should be included in the OKRs, in the company, in the enterprise OKRs as I would say a complementary criteria, complementary strategy, rather than this being perceived as one more layer of things that we need to do, right? I think the organizations should mean diversity and inclusion as a strategic, at the onset of anything that they might want to do. And I truly believe that there can be a better strategy than to enable continuous improvement, right, in a world that is increasingly unpredictable. I think we all know the acronym VUCA, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And if you look at what can enable this change in a VUCA world, that is, the diverse workforce, right? And we know that women are very powerful change agents. And when women are meaningfully represented, and I'm kind of emphasizing that meaningfully represented because they can be included at all layers of your organizations, but if they're, as I said, if they're not included on your decision-making tables at the key strategic making tables, then they're not meaningfully represented. But when they are meaningfully represented and engaged in the leadership groups or leadership bodies, such as, I would say, executive boards or leadership committees, and in fact, in all levels of organizations, I think critical decisions are more likely to be inclusive and take diverse views into account. So when I think all of you agree that women take on more executive leadership positions, their companies are obviously very organically more profitable, right? It's the case of balancing the power equation in leadership. And I think it's never been more clear than in the current challenging times that we are in. And you all must have read the news about the nations with women-led administrations managing and I would say controlling the COVID situation much better than any other nations that we know. So I think it's about elevating women in decision-making and simply it propels the business agility in an organization in a way that it brings diverse ideas, innovative ideas, because business agility absolutely requires innovative ideas, different perspectives, representing all sectors so they can serve the customer base better, and to problem solving, because we are aligning a diverse team to a diverse customer base. So just imagine, your customers are diverse. There are men, there are women, there are different age groups, there are different thought processes. How can you serve such a customer base with a monochromatic, probably a single gender dominated organization? It's simply not aligned. So that's the perspective that we need to bring in. So let's look at the leadership qualities, right? And I wanted to first mention that what leadership entails is very important, because we understand that the leadership is not about the titles at all. It's not about associating with a particular band in an organization at all, but this is about the mindset, right? It's about the ability to lead towards outcomes and not outputs. So let's talk about leadership as a mindset. It's about what is required by the organizations. It's about setting a vision. It's about enabling the teams to align to that North Star vision that the leadership had set up at all times. And if you look at the leadership capabilities, right, it's not about the title at all. You could be a C-suite, you could be a director, you could be a manager, you could be a lead for anything, but it's about the attitude and the mindset you're bringing. And that's common across the genders, right? That's the capability you're bringing in. And if you look at the capabilities, right, it's about establishing a very clear vision for your organization, shifting from a very reactive approach to a proactive approach. And it's about shaping your organization to an agile culture, agile mindset, enabling design thinking, systems thinking, looking at the whole and not the parts, right? It is about everything that really truly empowers your teams, not actually controlling them. It's not about the patriarchal leadership style at all. It's about how can you enable the teams and trust the teams and upskill the teams so they can achieve their full potential. That's the capability that we are looking at. And it really matters that every leader, man or a woman, needs to bring these capabilities into existence, into what they're sharing with the organization at all levels. So why women, right? Why are we advocating for more women? Why are we advocating for the balance in the leadership that we absolutely require? Because we know that women in leadership or otherwise they can leverage their natural inclination towards, I would say, transformational leadership, right? It's the power of the feminine, which lies in the natural abilities of a woman being empathetic and tremendous listening skills. It's emotional intelligence, very strong communication skills, ability to connect, to nurture, right? These are, I would say, a significant competitive edge of soft skills that women can bring to the table, right? And if you look at women in leadership, in terms of organizations that are led by women, you see that their policies or their hiring practices or their advocacy for the HR policies are very family friendly. They bring that work-life balance into picture. It's about a very participative and collaborative approach, right? And it's also about, as I said, it's not transactional leadership. It is more transformational leadership with high emotional intelligence. And I think it's an imperative that the business not just considers, but makes it a reality to have, if not more, equal number of women in leadership so they can represent that part of the organization well and they can lead those conversations effectively. So the missing link to business agility, and we have heard this buzzword for years now, right? And we talk about the speed, we talk about the agility at all levels, we talk about the North Star of the organization, we talk about the skills, we talk about leadership agility, but rarely do we really consider and look at the missing link towards the business agility. Because if you look at the definition of the business agility itself, it's the ability of an organization to adapt to rapidly changing environment, right? That's the simple definition of business agility. And it's its ability to kind of pivot towards the North Star as quickly, as seamlessly as possible with least resistance internally, right? I think that's the most critical aspect of an organization, to be able to pivot naturally and to align to the diverse customer base. And if you look at the missing link here, lack of women in business agility, just think about this for a minute, right? Just ponder on this for a minute. how can we as an organization, as an enterprise, serve a diverse customer base with diverse needs without having a diverse organization yourself? Because a diverse organization brings diverse perspectives, innovative ideas. And without having that organization in place, our ability to serve a diverse base of customers just is not possible, right? And if you look at the leadership, it's optimal only when you have the right mix of talent and organizational structure, right? And it's also being, it starts with agile leadership, and agility is achieved absolutely only through inclusion of diverse ideas and perspectives. So this is a non-negotiable factor. In fact, it's a missing link that is very comfortably ignored or forgotten or deferred by most organizations. It sounds simple when we talk. It is not a reality in most cases. I think all of us agree that near and far in our experiences, several women have had to work extra hard and had to advocate for them extra hard to be in those leadership positions, hands down. And it's a shame that in this age and in this time, if women have to work that extra hard and not having the awareness for the organizations, on part of the organizations, that this is a business imperative, I think we as a community have a lot of work to do ahead of us. So it's a very specific call to action that we have a lot of work ahead of us. So if you look at the stats here, right, and I'm not going to go through, the numbers here, it's very intricate, and this is a published statistic. It's not something that I have made up. But if you look at a simple stat, I'm just distilling this for you, right? For every 100 men promoted to managers or management to any, leadership positions, only 85 women were promoted. And this is pre-COVID, by the way, right? And this gap was even larger for some women. So if you look at women of color, I'm originally from India, right? And I have personally experienced early on in my career that it was hard to kind of jump that hoop to prove myself and advance in my career, right? So if you look at the statistics, apparently only 58 women of color and 71 Latinas were promoted to every 100 men in general. So if we dig in further, we will find similar statistics for, of course, women of color overall. But as a result, women remain significantly outnumbered at the manager level. Since the beginning of 2017, this research goes as, dated back to 2017. But this particular slide that I'm showing you, this is beginning of 2020. And the women just held 38% of manager positions, while men held 62%. That's almost 50% high. And there is no lack of professional women or lack of skilled women in our community. All of us agree that, right? Why then this gap, right? And if you look at the current challenges created by COVID, as many as 2 million women are considered to taking a leave of absence or leaving the workforce altogether. And this is the first time we have seen signs of women leaving the workforce at a higher rate, much higher rate than men. And in the previous 5 years of this study, women and men left their companies at similar rates. In the last 1 year of COVID, women are leaving at a much, much alarming rates, higher rates than that of men. So think about this, right? If these women feel forced to leave the workforce because of, call it home studies, call it, I would say family duties. In some cultures, women are expected to take on more family responsibilities than men. And in COVID, all of us are locked home. We are not working remotely, we are working from home. That puts tremendous pressure on women in some households, across different cultures. It's just culturally different. And they're forced to leave the workforce just to kind of keep up with the family responsibilities. And if these women leave workforce for various reasons, we'll end up with even far fewer women in leadership, right? Far more fewer women on track to the future leaders, to be future leaders. And all the progress that we have seen in the past 5 years, because organizations have been advocating for women leadership, there are several organizations that have been advocating for women leadership, all that progress would be reduced or even erased, right? So I think the call to action again during this pandemic, and this pandemic is going to change the way we work, the way we come together for good. We are not going to go back to the normal ever, right? We are in the new normal already. So let's think about how this pandemic has changed the way we work. And also, I think it made it evident that the traditional form of leadership styles and decision-making styles will just not serve in the future, right? The traditional mindsets, or if you look at the traditional mindsets, were very patriarchal. It's the boss at the top, it's the dad at the top of the pyramid telling what everybody must do. It's just irrelevant. Now it's going to be irrelevant in future. And we all know that nothing we all knew before this pandemic prepared us enough for the current situation, right? With the current times. None of us were prepared enough. I think everything that we knew or we thought we knew prepared us enough. We scrambled in the first few months, if you remember how it was in the last year, first few months. So I think the gender stereotypes and the traditional barriers or traditional narratives will need to be challenged now more than ever, because we need a transformational leadership. So I think the old narratives have to be challenged. They have to be questioned. And most importantly, we need to realize as a community that gender imbalance at the top especially will not be balanced by any other compensative factors. No matter what you do as an organizational strategy, you just can't compensate for a gender imbalance. It is just more than a gender imbalance. It's an imbalance of what each gender contributes to the full potential and inclusive decision-making. So what we are seeing here as a statistic can become reality in our day-to-day implementations and execution, and how we collaborate and how we bring business agility into our organization. So this is a call to action for all of us. And I think now is the time for us to act. And now is the time for the organizations to look beyond just the numbers in the hiring strategy and make it a reality to not just hire women, but also to put them at the decision-making tables. And it's a call to women for action to own those seats at the table. Yes, you have the seat at the table, but how can you own it, right? So when I first heard about the concept called broken rung, it just blew me away, because it's not about the glass ceilings or glass cliffs anymore, right? It's not the generic barriers that women always faced, but it's about the concept of broken rung. Again, McKinsey speaks extensively about this concept. And this is, the concept is simply the biggest obstacle or impediment or challenge keeping women from advancing in their careers. And in fact, taking that first plunge, that first step up from entry-level position or any position they are in to management or to a leadership position, right? That broken link is the broken rung. And that is often the biggest obstacle you'll see, right? And that's why you see so many people in the pyramid structure in the bottom of the pyramid. And it's very hard to do that jump. It's almost like a quantum leap, if you will, right? And that is exactly where we all struggle, men and women, and very prominently women struggle to kind of, run that hoop, if you will, jump that hoop. And if you look at the stats, I provided some stats just now, but it's also that if you have 72 women hired to management compared to 100 men for the same position, right? Men end up holding 62% of leadership positions, while women hold 38%. And that's a pretty, I would say, very prominent and a very profound statistic, right? 62 versus 38%. That's because there are obstacles, there are barriers, and both structural and internalized, right? And in Lean and Agile, we run workshops to have women kind of identify their own barriers. Because there are organizations that we talk to, that we interact with, who say, we have positions, we have leadership roles, we just don't have enough women applying, which is true. So how do we equip women? How do we empower and prepare women to apply, to be out there, to advocate for themselves, and most importantly, believe in themselves that they can? They can stand up and they can apply and they can really fulfill that function of leadership. I think that's where we all need to kind of invest our energies as to how can we have women address their own internal barriers so they can kind of cross that bridge when the chance really presents itself. So again, broken rung is in front of us. So as hiring managers, as HR managers, as colleagues, as people in the community, I think we need to recognize that this broken rung can really impede the acceleration of women coming into leadership roles. So let's be mindful of that. Let's raise awareness on that, and it's all of us who can make it possible that the women can really cross this I would say this gap and bridge the gap for themselves as well as us, right? And I talked about developing women leaders because this requires effort. It's an investment that women make in themselves, and it's a very conscious, very intentional investment that the organizations need to make for women, right? To kind of develop women leaders. And how do we do that? Because most organizations do not invest in this, right? Do not invest in developing leaders, let alone developing women leaders. This is an intentional effort, right? Now, when you create intentional space, people apply, people emerge, people will take it up. You need to be intentional about creating that space, setting a goal for hiring certain number of women into certain management layers, identifying women leaders across the organizations. It doesn't have to be in a particular band, but it's about the initiative. It's about the, I would say the talent, or it's about the passion that these women are showing. Identify them, right? And if you look around, you will see them. We just have to be intentional about it. And it's also a shout out to women that don't wait for the title to take on the responsibilities or be a leader, right? Identify the opportunities are all around you. And that's how you advocate for yourself, through your work. It's not through what you say, but what you do. And I think the organization at large needs to identify where the broken rungs are and why the broken rungs are, right? It's about the what and the how, and how they can be resolved, how they can be repaired. What are those elements or criteria that you could have several women kind of have the first jump into their manager positions so they can have a smoother transitions to higher and higher roles in the organization, because we do need them to make better decisions, inclusive decisions across the layers. It's not enough if you just have them at the top or in the middle. You need to have a uniform spread of women across the leadership layers. So I think developing the leaders in the organization, again, is a business imperative. It's a very intentional effort, and this needs to be done. It's not an option, it's not a nice to have, but it has to be done. And the responsibility is equally across the organization and women themselves. So it's a co-ownership, and they can co-create this for themselves. So it's a call to action for both. And in my experience, I've seen that, yes, you have women, but it goes back to how diverse your women leadership is, right? So how can you bring in more diverse thought leadership or backgrounds or their experience, the industry experience and leadership styles, etc., to make that layer more and more diverse, right? So how can you accelerate that decision-making capability by bringing diverse opinions and mindsets into the space? So it's not just about having gender diversity, but also diversity within that gender diversity to be inclusive, all inclusive, and not have that, I would say, monochromatic perspective or tunnel vision, right? It's expansion all the way through. And I mentioned a little bit about Lean and Agile, and we wanted to start this session with an activity, but I thought giving a background of why we need more women leaders and to kind of how can we develop more women leaders was important before we can talk about this initiative, right? So Lean and Agile is an organization, it's a community organization, nonprofit organization, truly for community and by the community. And this was founded on the premise that women can shape their own journeys, right? It's not just for their own development, but also to offer to other women and create an ecosystem where it's a psychologically safe space for them to ask for help. Because in our experience, we have realized and we have recognized that women are the last to seek help, to seek support. So how can we create an ecosystem and groups, spirals of women across the world, wherever it's required, where they can come together and truly support each other, right? It doesn't need leadership, it doesn't need leaders, it doesn't need facilitators, right? It's just a group coming together and saying, hey, I have this, can I offer to somebody? And somebody raising their hand and saying, hey, I have a requirement, I have a need, can somebody help me out? So it is a very co-creative environment where women come together and really seek help in a truly agile manner, in a psychologically safe space. And that's where Lean and Agile was born. And so far we have great support and great success with women coming together and truly supporting each other, right? And these efforts that we are putting forth are to develop women leaders in their own right. And there is really no title or level that we are talking about. They're leading their own journeys. They're supporting and enabling the organizations to lead their vision. So that's the leadership we are talking about here, right? And I just wanted to kind of mention about the spirals. So the groups that I just mentioned are the spirals, and we named them spirals because we truly wanted them to be upward facing and never ending. There's always a space for another woman in the group, right? And these are true support structures to raise the floor for women. And raising of the floor for each other happens within the spiral. across the spirals. And we do have women presenting from within the spirals or externally, but the intent of a spiral is to bring these women together and enable them and create that space and platform for them to learn from each other, to support each other. And we have seen that happening in a fantastic way, where women who have joined us, who have not even uttered a word for months, would come back and be confident to present what they've learned, or to raise their hand and say, hey, I've been wanting to write a blog, but I'm apprehensive. Am I even eligible to write? What do I have to say? What can I say? Who am I to say, right? These are all the imposter syndromes or barriers that we carry within ourselves, which is so hard to break out. But once you do, you'll be surprised how many organizations or how many opportunities are there out for you. Because once a very dear friend told me that all that you need to do is to ask. You'll be surprised how many times you'll hear a yes versus a no. I think that's the first step, right? To come out of your comfort zone and ask for help. And we recognize that it's hard to ask for help. Who do you ask? Colleagues, friends, LinkedIn community? It's hard for women to just come out and ask. Hence the spirals, right? Where we have that a collective intelligence coming together in a very safe space. Everybody are starting out, and there is really no bottom or top for spirals. Everybody's in their own spaces. Everybody's comfortable where they are, and everybody can ask, and no offer is too big, no seek is too small. All that you have to do is to ask. And we have seen this in action and seen this being successful. So again, call to action to the community is please create the groups wherever you are, and you'll be surprised at how much you benefit and how much you can take away from this group of women coming together. And my favorite quote personally is, when women support each other, incredible things can happen. Right? And I just wanted to draw your attention to the 4 pillars of Lean and Agile. Our mission rests on 4 major pillars. The first one is spirals. I just talked about it. The second one is her story. So this is where we launched an initiative called Leah 100, where we are bringing the stories of 100 women to the community. And again, this is a humble effort to draw inspiration, right? As Lizzie was talking about inspiration, right? How do you draw inspiration from each other? And these women are from our own community, right? They lived, just like all of us. Their journey was just like all of us. I think what differentiates them from anybody else is their grit, their persistence, and most importantly, their belief in themselves. And that's the story we wanted to bring to the community and say, hey, if they can do it, anybody can do it. You can do it, I can do it, right? So we are bringing those stories. And recently we launched something called Women of the Week in 2021. And again, the idea is you don't have to be an extraordinary woman, right? You are a leader in your own right, and you can bring inspiration with whatever you're doing to the community. So we are launching that. We launched that, and every week you'll see a woman who has really been showing passion and working hard and bringing her best to the table, right? So that's the true spirit of her story. Next Gen, we truly want the next generation women, young women, high school girls to really adopt Agile mindset much sooner than, we don't have to wait for them to come to the organizations to teach them Agile, right? It's a mindset. So we are shifting left, truly. We are taking it to young women, and we have next generation spirals. So please, again, let's encourage these young women to form their own spirals and again, support each other, right? They handle and they go through much different challenges than we do. So they need that psychologically safe space to kind of support each other. The last one is WIP, not work in progress, the WIP we know, but it's about the Women Inclusion Pledge that we truly want the organizations to take. We truly want the conference organizers to take. And you're seeing it right here, right? You know, when Toby called me, when Matthias talked to me, and they are tremendous supporters of, you know, their women allies, right? They're tremendous supporters of organizations like Lean and Agile, Women in Agile, and they're always inviting women speakers, and they've I would say, intentionally laid out that space for us. And that's the pledge they've taken, right? So that's the part of the work that we are doing. Is Women Inclusion Pledge is again an imperative for our community. So bring on more, and let's pledge to include women at all layers, at all levels. Finally, our flagship, I would say, effort is the Offer Seek, and this is across, you know, all the spirals, all women, whoever wants to join. You know, we invite them, and you know, we encourage them to put offer cards on a board. We have a very simple framework. It's a very simple tool, Trello, and we encourage them to put offer cards. And somebody out there is seeking that, and they would match up, and they would raise their hand and say, "Hey, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Can I take that? Can I take up on that offer?" Right? And they self-organize on how to kind of make that happen. And similarly seeking, and we ask them to be forthcoming with their requests. And you see seeks like, hey, I would like to talk at a conference, but I don't think I'm confident. I don't even know how to write a proposal, right? And I'll do a very high level draft. Can somebody please review it? Takes 15 minutes, right? And we have several such seek cards, right? Hey, I need a run through of Kanban, or I would like to write a very challenging email to my boss. I've been struggling to put my words on the paper. Can somebody please, you know, take a second look? 10 minutes, right? And somebody out there is always ready. All that you need to do is to ask, right? And now we have, I would say, the largest offer seek board in DMV. I don't have the number, but I think we have upwards of 100 offers and seeks. And it's a beautiful community that is building, and they're collaborating and co-creating the future and the future leaders that this community and the organizations so much need at this point. So that's what I wanted to wrap up with. A call to action is, let's co-create these spirals, these groups. We don't have to wait for anyone to plant it for us, right? You know, this is on us. Let's take it up. I think we have collective intelligence and collective capability within us to propel us to that next step. And we don't have to take small steps then, right? It's quantum leaps that's awaiting us. Thank you so much. And we invite you to join, you know, any spiral, or, you know, form your own groups, but, you know, with an intention to really identify your own barriers and reach out to kind of offer your support. And, you know, feel free to raise your hand and trust that there will be a yes for that request. Thank you so much.
Awesome. That was really great, Padmini. This is a big round of applause.
Thank you.
You have uncovered so much of information on how diversity is very important, how important, and how the numbers, like I was surprised to see the downfall of the numbers, especially women in color, right? The diversity, it's in single digits, single percentage. So, and how challenges, the broken rug, how to co-create the atmosphere where we have this women diversity or inclusion. Really great topic, and I totally loved it. The best part I took it away from here is the Lean and Agile, the 4 pillars, and how much of effort you are all working towards bringing that creating more avenues for women to come up to speed, or do something what they always wanted to do. And ask the question. There's so much of help available, but just not knowing it is again such a thing, right? So ask for help is really good takeaway. Let me look into the chat section. We have really good conversations in the chat window. One of the questions that I have added in the chat, in the question QA session is, gender inclusion is a choice, how powerful it is, right? How do we help organizations make the right choices as Agilists?
So this is the enabling part, right? How can we enable the organization? So even before we go to the making the organizations do something, it is about helping them, enabling them to uncover the gaps, right? And it is going to be an iterative process, right? As Agilists, I love that they've added the as Agilist part, because as Agilists, I think we need to go with smaller experiments, iterating on the successes of the smaller experiments, because just imagine, right? Organizations are huge. And I love this metaphor that I've given always. These are like huge cruise ships trying to take a U-turn. It's not going to take a sharp U-turn, right? It's going to take time. And what helps is to devise and design and enable smaller experiments and propelling on the success of those smaller experiments as you go into the next step. And it requires partnership, right? At all levels, at the leadership level, at the management level, at the team level. It requires trust, it requires inclusion, and it requires really getting those experiments and results out there and sharing it with the leadership and ensuring they are buying in iteratively. I think as Agilists, we must remember transformation can be done in a broad stroke. It is several smaller strokes, and you must be okay to fail. You must be okay to see the lag, the delay in the transformation, right? Having the patience, having the persistence will make it possible.
Totally agree. Yeah, iteration.
Yeah.
All right. I think the next one is more about how we are echoing the broken rug is definitely the biggest challenge here, and how we can co-create and try to bridge the gap with broken rug initial in the career ladder. What can we do to avoid the gaps? More on that side, practical ways that it really helped.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned, in the broken rung, space that I talked about. And again, there is no silver bullet, right? There is no one, I would say, one solution to kind of bridge the gap. I wish there was, and it would have been easy to kind of, just adopt it and call it done. Broken rung by far is the I would say the most stickiest challenge that the organizations have in general, right? Because that part, again, this goes to both structural and internal barriers that I was talking about. Structurally, the organizations should be set up with spaces for women leadership, right? They should be intentional about hiring practices, intentional about creating the diverse pool of applicants, intentional about developing the women leaders so they can apply, so they have diverse pool, so they can bring in more women leaders. It's like a cycle, right? It has a cascading effect of one to the other. And the broken rung can be repaired or fixed only with first awareness. And the second one is being intentional about it, which is why the advocacy comes into picture, right? That is where the coachings or transformation agents come into picture, where I think inclusion should be part of the OKRs in the organization. So when it becomes the OKR at an enterprise level, it decomposes into further layers in the organization. And the first broken rung, which is the first gap for the women to take that step, right? It becomes a mandate. It becomes a requirement to have as many women leaders as you have men leaders. So I think that's the first step, to be intentional about creating those spaces and then creating the opportunities for women to jump on. So it's on both sides. The women should take the responsibility for themselves, but organizations have equal responsibility to kind of make it happen and enabling the women to kind of apply and having that opportunity for them.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yep, I agree on the OKR part too. So the remaining chat messages are more on how they are, agree to the topic, and also about how to also, I've seen the George comments on also learn to notice your own unconscious biases, question your snap judgments. That's right.
Absolutely. So that goes back to the imposter syndrome, right? That's the unconscious, bias that we have for ourselves. And unless we address it as an internal barrier and ensure that we work on it very intentionally, there's really nothing that the organizations can do. Because as I mentioned as an example, and this was a real example, when I was having a conversation with one of the hiring manager about this very topic, the question was, or the concern was, we don't have that diverse applicant pool. So tell us, how do we fulfill these roles? And that kind of, lighted the bulb, right there, that yes, we need to create those diverse pool of applicants for us to create these women leaders. So I think it is both unconscious bias, internalized barriers, coupled with imposter syndrome. I think that's the work ahead of us.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, and others also agreeing on how broken. Padma says how broken rug is definitely my biggest takeaway from today. Good leaders, managers, where the broken rugs are and why they exist. Have Christina comment on a need to identify potential leaders and groom them to take the step up. And very, very valuable thoughts from our attendees. Toby says, very inspiring. There is no glass ceiling, right? And Meenakshi is saying, love the offer, seek. No ask is too big, no offer is too small, as Zelia Spiral says it.
Absolutely.
That's nice.
Yeah. We don't have to think about 3 months of coaching, 6 months of mentoring, right? I think 10 minutes could be extremely valuable to some women somewhere. And that might actually be a very pivotal point, in their journey.
Right.
And I'd like to, this is a DMV space, and I'd like to give a huge shout out to our DMV catalysts. We are 6 of us, including myself. We have Meenakshi Iyer, Padma Putrevu, Loredana Callan, Poonam Agarwal, Alona Matsala, incredible women who really helped kick this off from the ground, from scratch, right? This was a novel idea back in 2017. How can we bring it together on a cadence and encourage women to come together? They have done tremendous work. And I would say DMV is one of the biggest spirals we have today. And kudos to them.
A big shout out to all those women,
Yeah.
6 women leaders. This is really amazing. And as a woman, I agree to this diversity, and women bring so much of perception, diversity perception, and especially handling. I feel like we do so much at home, multitask work and dealing with kids. I feel like there is sense of empathy, there is emotional intelligence, there is all sort of creativity that comes with women. So having this, seat in the table at a strategic level, C-suite level, you can see amazing results.
Absolutely.
So totally agree.
I would go one step further, right? Yes, you will have a seat at the table. You have to own it. I think that's on us.
Yes.
Right? Own
totally.
it and, really bring more women. There's always one woman waiting to be, pulled up. So own it and pull somebody else beside you.
Perfect, perfect. Awesome. So I think that's all in the comment section.
I think we had one more question. I think in the questions for Padmini list, I think Toby had a question there.
Oh, yes, in the Q&A. So Toby had a comment. Women have not only proven themselves as equal, but have easily surpassed that. Where are the biases? Is it the women themselves where they feel or don't feel empowered, or is it with how others see it?
It's both, right? And that's the metaphor we have given with external and internal barriers, right? And which is why I always drew comparison between organizations need to enable, or they need to see the potential of women, but women need to see it within themselves. If you don't come out and put yourself out and show and call out that, hey, I'm ready, I don't have to be 100%, I'm good enough as I am, I will learn as we go, right? We will co-create the ecosystem where I can grow and you can enable me to grow. It's both, right? It's how the others see you, but it's also about how you see yourself. In fact, I would say that is the bigger barrier, right? That's what you need to address and overcome. So it's actually both. It will always be both.
Totally agree to that. Laura also has a comment on depends on the bias, some is unconscious.
Yeah, absolutely. I think unconscious bias is the strongest bias we have, right? We don't even know we have it. And that's a lot of work to kind of uncover that, address that, and ensure that you overcome that.
All right, I think we're at the end of our time, but thank you so much, Padmini, and thank you, Lakshmi, for the great questions you brought to us. It's always really inspirational to see you making such an impact in something that is so needed in our world today, and really happy that you were able to join us, and hoping that you can stick around and interact with folks in this conference and just keep lifting people up. So thank you so much for joining. And for everyone else, we'll see you. Feel free to keep interacting in the Whova application, and we will see you on the conference. Tomorrow we have another day and we have another keynote, and check out the schedule. We have some more really exciting talks for you. So we will see you all there. For now, have a good night, and thank you again, Padmini. Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you.